Good morning, traders. I am Emily Advani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Wednesday, April 9th. Well, that was a tease. The relief rally couldn't quite hold, and markets ended another day in the red, slipping from earlier session highs and extending their losses this morning. During regular trading yesterday, the Dow shed 320 points, or 0.84%. The S&P 500 gave up 79 points, or more than 1.5%. The Nasdaq dropped 35 points, or 2.15%. Bill, let's get into today's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Yes, good morning, Emily. I'm watching the S&Ps. We're down 1.64% this morning. S&Ps are really weak, and they're extending their losses this morning. This is all tariff-induced sell-off. It's just continuing. There's anxiety over the escalating U.S. China trade tensions. China's tariffs are now at 104% on imports. And then this morning, China imposed 84% tariffs on U.S. goods in response to Trump's reciprocal levies. So Trump is going to respond, and that's going to create more havoc. And the European Union apparently is preparing to issue a set of tariffs on U.S. goods, sometime this week. I'm nervous on that. The U.S. Trade Representative James Greer, he spoke to the Senate Finance Committee yesterday, and he said that President Trump won't provide exemptions to his new global tariffs for individuals or products. Individuals or products or companies. Greer is scheduled to testify before the House today, and he'll probably sing the same tune that he did yesterday, but it was not positive. President Trump did speak at an event last night, and he indicated that he's planning tariffs on pharmaceutical products in the near future. The pharmaceutical companies are rushing to try and create production facilities here in the U.S. to avoid these tariffs. Today, listen, the key economic event going on today is the release of the Fed meeting minutes. They're going to talk about the tariffs. They're going to talk about, how it will affect the economy. They're going to talk about inflation. They're going to talk about, job growth, the employment situation. But I don't think it's really going to be that big of a market mover because, we already know what they did. They left rates steady, and they're going to say that they still have, they're in a waiting period to see how the economy responds to the Trump tariffs before making any decisions on the future paths of interest rates. So we got to be careful on that. Delta, ticker DAL. Hey, they released earnings. They were better than expected. Granted, you got to remember the bar was really low for them. I mean, they slashed their guidance in March significantly. So, with a low bar, I'm not surprised that they were able to beat. Now we're just turning our attention over to global markets to see what's happening overseas. And, we're starting off with Germany with the DAX. I mean, the DAX is just what can I say? The DAX is just getting crushed this morning. It's down 3.9% or 791 points. There's nothing more to say really than, the EU member states are posed to approve the bloc's initial retaliatory measures against the U.S. tariffs. So, that's the key issue that's causing that weakness. And then you got FTSE in London down 283 points. That's 3.59%. You got weakness in mining stocks, financial stocks, anything tied to industrial demand and credit cycles are facing selling pressure. I mean, the potential economic slowdown from the escalating trade tensions is significant. And then you look at in Paris, you look at the CAC, it's down 285 points. That's 4%, 4.01%. It's all due to the tariffs and and Trump's talk about the pharmaceuticals. There's a lot of pharmaceutical companies in London and in France. And then we're looking last night in Asia where the action wasn't so bad. I mean, you look at the Nikkei. The Nikkei got smoked. The Nikkei dropped 1,298 points. That's 3.93%. Basically the sell-off was very broad-based, and it's due to the fact that the reciprocal tariffs on dozens of countries took effect. But then you look at Hong Kong, it actually rose 136 points or 0.68%. And you look at the Shanghai, it rose 41 points, which is 1.31%. Now, the Chinese premier emphasized that Beijing's ability to counteract the external economic pressures, including these trade U.S. trade tensions, and the tariffs being at 104%, they feel they'll be able to withstand that. China did introduce measures to help try and stabilize its financial markets. Their state-owned funds are doing buybacks, things like that, to try and stabilize that market, and it does appear to be working. So Hong Kong and China actually rose, whereas in the Japan's Nikkei fell. And then we got to look over at oil this morning, and oil is getting beat up again. You got WTI at $55.59 a barrel. That's down 6.70%. You got Brent at $58.84 a barrel. That's down 6.34%. It's due to the escalation fears of a global recession. That's what's causing these oil prices to fall. We had the a draw in the estimates that came from the API last night, American Petroleum Institute, for their oil stockpiles, which typically is positive for oil prices. But no, the recession fears are much stronger. Today we do get another oil stockpiles report. We get the official data. So markets will be paying attention to it. I don't know if that's going to be enough to kind of change the direction of oil, but oil is getting hit down over 6% this morning, Emily.
Bill, seeing red a lot of places today. As you mentioned, we're watching the futures, which are down, global markets down, oil down. And a quick note here, I did say the NASDAQ dropped 35 points yesterday. Actually, it was 335. If only it was 35 points. But moving right along here, as we're managing this tariff situation and these fears of recession and trade war, we're still following data and information. It's important to keep a hold of all the details on the day to truly, really try to remain calm as we're navigating these tricky waters. You did point to at least one earnings report that came out a little bit better than expected. So we will start with earnings action. Bill, what is going on there?
The big report that came out this morning was on Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines beat by 7 cents, and they did that on higher revenue. You look at the stock this morning, it's up about 0.4%. Now you got to remember, these guys slashed their guidance, I think it was in half in early March. So the bar was really low, and they beat the low bar. So I guess that's positive. They took their medicine early in March, but they did deliver a beat, and that is, positive for the stock, and that's why we are seeing a trade slightly higher this morning. After the bell today, PSMT, Paul, Sam, Mary, Tom. This is PriceSmart. Their EPS is $1.44, and their expected move is 10.39%. Now, the put-to-call ratio is 7.75. Now, I'm not putting much attention on this figure today because, the volume yesterday was so low, that the call volume appears that it's much more significant, when you look at that ratio, but it was low volume. Stars Constellation Brands, STZ, Sam, Tom, Zebra, they're also coming out after the bell. Their EPS is $2.29. Expected move is 9.01%. Put-to-call ratio 1.06. That is negative, but we'll have to see how what happens when they come out. Stars Constellation Brands, STZ, reporting earnings after the bell today, Emily.
You'll be following those using your earnings alert, and it'll become increasingly interesting to watch these earnings. Obviously, these reports are sort of, backward looking, but really will be also looking for clues when it comes to guidance as all these companies start to report. Now, speaking of reports to keep track of, economic reports and events of the day, you did mention those FOMC meeting minutes. Again, they're sort of backward looking from the last meeting, but again, looking for Easter eggs, for clues on where the Fed is, what they're thinking, and how they're going to be navigating the economic situation at large. So let's get into it, Bill. What is going on in terms of the day's economic events?
Well, at 10 a.m., we get a report on wholesale inventories. It's a preliminary report. 10:30 a.m., we get the EIA oil stockpiles report. This is the official data. a draw in the stockpiles would actually, might be able to push oil a little higher. That's something to watch. And then at 2 p.m., the key economic report for the day when we get the FOMC meeting minutes. And then at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to be hearing from Richmond Fed Bank President Thomas Barkin. I mean, the economic stories all around Trump tariffs, and it's causing concern even within his own party. I mean, the Senate Finance Committee hearing yesterday with the Trade Representative James Greer, during that hearing, the Republican lawmakers expressed real uneasiness about the tariffs, economic fallout, and reflection. And it's showing divisions within the GOP, and that's not positive for Trump because, at the end of the day, politicians are loyal to themselves first, and they will bail on President Trump and his economic agenda if they feel that they are not going to get reelected due to it. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see more and more of these GOP congressmen and GOP senators start to break camp and start pushing to take back control over who controls the tariffs, whether it be Congress or whether it be the president. But that's what I have for you in terms of economic reports, Emily.
And as tariffs really galvanize the headlines here, again, you're still looking at other data and information. How is this big headline reverberating throughout other types of news, data, and information? As you do every morning, this morning, you're looking at things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news, catalyst calls. You're also grouping your stocks together to track trends on the trading day, like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
I'm doing a quick data check. I'm looking at my Dow stocks. I got 30 Dow stocks and I got 30 Dow stocks that are trading lower. I'm looking at my FANG stocks. They're all in the red. With Apple, getting hit the hardest, down 1.81%. You look at some of the news out there like Apple, Bank of America is out there with a note this morning, which essentially says that the assembly of iPhones here in the US is logistically challenging for Apple. And that's true. I mean, they have the supply chains going, to Asia to manufacture these iPhones, and you're going to turn that around and have them come to the US. Well, that's going to be another duty. So, it's not as easy as just making it when you're importing all the components from overseas. Amazon, some major brokers remain positive on the stock, but they are lowering price targets. Google, I see that a German regulator ends their probe into Google's in-car services after Google did some remedies. Meta, Instagram's working on an iPad app. I mean, that's interesting to me. But there is a whistleblower that's set to testify that the company aided Chinese AI initiatives. I'm not going to put too much attention on that. Tesla, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, he's apparently funding an electric vehicle startup called Slate Auto out of Michigan. And they could be doing production as early as next year. So it's something to keep an eye on. Slate Auto, backed by Jeff Bezos. In terms of Dow Jones 30 stocks, Walmart, WMT, they're holding an investment community meeting today. There could be something there. Boeing announced that they delivered 130 commercial aircrafts in the first quarter. That's actually positive. It's higher than what the expectations were. Disney, DIS, David India Sam. Hey, I saw a story hit the tape this morning that they're cutting prices to their theme parks. Wow, they really need to get more bodies into those theme parks. It's multi-level. I mean, there's multiple ways you can get these discounted tickets. Disney trading lower. Disney is trading lower. I mean, it's down 1.82%. But the theme park, stuff is pretty interesting to me. In terms of merger news, Cal-Maine Foods, ticker CALM, Charlie Apple, Larry Michael, they're going to be requiring Echo Lakes for about $258 million. In terms of guidance news, Delta, they came out and they said that they see Q2 EPS coming in at $1.70 to $2.30. Now, the street estimate is $2.23. So it's a very wide range. I mean, you're talking a 60 cents range, and they're kind of at the high end. The street estimates I was at the high end of it, but it's okay. But in terms of full year 2025 guidance, they are not reaffirming, and they're citing, economic uncertainty. They can't do it. They don't know what's going to happen over the next couple of quarters, and yeah, it is challenging. But oil prices are cheap, and that is typically a big expense for the airlines. In terms of shareholders events going on, let's talk Costco, ticker COSD. Today's the first, today's Wednesday, and Costco is set to release their March sales results today after the bell, COST, something to watch for. And TSM, they're going to be releasing their monthly sales overview tomorrow morning, late tonight. That's something to keep an eye on. In terms of buyback news, CALM, Charlie Apple, Larry Michael, Cal-Maine Foods, they announced a $500 million stock repurchasing plan. In terms of catalyst calls, ticker SRE, Sam Richard Edward, Citibank lowered the price target to $70 on SRE, Sam Richard Edward, but they also opened up a 90-day positive catalyst watch on the stock. Interesting. But that's what I have for you about news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. We've now made it to that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, continuing to sift through all of this to look for opportunities, even on a day where we're swimming in the red. So what is your pick of the day today?
In terms of, the economy and everything's falling apart, you got to look for those pockets that are likely to create some stability. I always say telecom. Telecom is a good one. Healthcare is typically one too, but with the Trump actions on the pharmaceutical sector, you got to back off on that trade. But today I'm going to go with ExxonMobil, ticker XOM. X-ray Oscar Mary. I mean, listen, crude's down 6.5% this morning, which is huge. That's a huge move lower. But I do think that there's going to be buyers out there picking up the oil at these cheap prices. I mean, I, you know, I see Saudi Arabia is okay with oil going down to $50 a barrel. Well, it's at 55 right now. So they're getting a little concerned, but I do think that we're going to see a little bit of a turnaround in oil. It could happen today. So I like ExxonMobil for that reason, is that I'm expecting, crude oil to bounce. I'm looking at yesterday's call volume on Exxon, and 43,179 calls versus puts of 39,931. Positive, close to even, but positive. But open interest, 583K versus 583K on the call side versus 374K on the put side. I mean, that's clearly, on the call side. Major brokers continue to remain positive on the stock. Now, they have been lowering price targets. I know that. But the stock is really falling off a cliff. And, listen, I'm not saying it's not going any lower. I could see it trading down under 97. So I'll say 96.50 is my entry point, but I think it could hit the low 97 area. So 96.50 to 97. If you can get in at that range, if there's this harsh selling on ExxonMobil today, I'm going to be picking some up. So that's my pick of the day. ExxonMobil, ticker XOM, X-ray Oscar Mary, Emily.
ExxonMobil it is today on an oil play. I did catch an article yesterday that encouraged, going to oil stocks in these tricky economic conditions. So there you go. We'll follow that along with you today. And coming up, we will do a recap on yesterday's pick of the day, see if we were able to get a win there before we sign off. But ahead of that, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Okay, listen, I see a note here on it's really J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon. He's like, listen, he comes out and he's talking about, say that it is a recession is a likely outcome of the Trump tariffs, and he came out and he additionally said, if you want to calm the markets, show progress on trade deals. Not seeing defaults yet, but he expects to see them because these hedge funds, a lot of them are very highly leveraged, and that is going to, create havoc in the future. So yeah, we don't think that we're out of the woods, even though we're down hard today, that we can't go lower. We can. China, hey, China strike back that the tariffs on U.S. goods to 84% as the trade war really expands. Wait for Trump to respond. I'm sure he will. What else do we see here this morning? The Trump administration revises port fee plan to soften blow to U.S. exports, according to sources. Interesting. Trump-era policies posed to boost U.S. manufacturing. We'll see about that. Here's a guy came out that said Trump is close to caving on tariffs. I don't know if that's true. I don't think so. I mean, it's all about him showing that he's a tough guy. Trump signed that order an executive order yesterday to improve U.S. energy securities on coal. We don't need coal. Trump Media, TJT, TV streaming apps now available in Canada and Mexico. DGX, David Grace X-ray. Quest Diagnostics launches AD detection blood tests for Alzheimer's confirmation. That's positive. DGX, David Grace X-ray. I like Quest. Walmart pulls its first quarter operating income guidance, citing tariff impacts. Crowdsource. Their CEO was interviewed last night, and he said that the company CRWD, Charlie Richard William David, is not subject to tariffs. They're a cybersecurity firm, so I could see that. It's hard to believe that these Trump tariffs just took effect April 2nd was when the announcement was. Here it is a week later. Apple, Luxshare, which is, in talks with customers on ways to respond to U.S. tariffs by shifting more production outside of China. Chevron is planning to increase the use of a technique that allows it to fracture subterranean rock in 3 wells at a time in the Permian Basin. Comcast, they're going to build their first universal theme park resort in Europe. But that's possible. U.S. Steel said yesterday that an activist investor, Anacora Holdings, who previously attempted to undermine the planned merger with Nippon Steel, has flip-flopped and now claims to be in support of the transaction. That's all I have for you this morning.
Okay, Bill, before we dive into trading today, let's do a quick check-in on yesterday's pick of the day, which was Marvell. Now, you did make this pick following the company's announcement of the sale of its non-core automotive Ethernet business for $2.5 billion in cash, hoping that would bring a little bit of momentum as we were really waiting the opening bell. Lots of question marks. The day was certainly a roller coaster. Just when we all thought things were going up, they went down. But you were trying to get a gain in this one, Bill. How did your call work out?
Listen, the stock opened up at $54.24, and then it ran. It ran up to $56.25, and then the market weakness came in, and it hit everything. But the 1% was there off the opening price, which was positive. I thought there would be a little weakness in the morning, but it wasn't there. But 54.24 wasn't a bad price to get in, and especially since it ran, almost 4% from there. So Marvell was a winner yesterday, Emily.
Nice to get a win on a day like that, and we will check in with you tomorrow about today's ExxonMobil pick of the day, see if we can get a win there. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.